If you want to see how I turn this ugly, empty terrain into this beautiful mountain forest, then stick around to the end. Welcome back to another Swords and Magic and Stuff devlog. Last month, I took a short break from the game to make a game jam game about playing the healer in a dungeon crawler. Well, I didn't finish it, but maybe one day I will. After that much needed time off from Swords and Magic, I was pretty excited to get back to work. So I got straight to work prepping the game for Witch's Eve, which actually brings me to this video's sponsor. Me. That's right, Swords and Magic and Stuff is on sale right now. Right this second for a whole 40% off in celebration of Witch's Eve, our annual Halloween festival update, which brings back trick-or-treating, dozens of exclusive Halloween-only items, a bunch of sneaky scarecrows with riddles to solve, and an awesome exclusive prize at the end. If you considered buying the game before but wanted to wait, now would be a great time to pick it up. We wanted to put the game on our biggest sale yet, just to see how many of our 40,000 wishlisters were waiting for the big sale, versus how many were waiting for a 1.0 release. So I guess we'll find out next week when the sale is over. So yeah, as you could have guessed, I finished up the Witch's Eve content and we launched the update. But in the meantime, I really wanted to work on something fun and exciting. The last few updates were mostly just quality of life things, like the new buff bar, the class system, better status effects, and a ton of bug fixes, which the game desperately needed. I really wanted to get caught up on all the stuff that I felt the game needed to be a complete and playable RPG that we were really lacking. But now that most of that stuff is out, I needed a break from programming and I wanted to get back in touch with why I love Swords and Magic and why it's a passion project that I've been able to dedicate the last 6 years of my life to. So I jumped into a live stream on Twitch, link in the description below by the way if you want to catch my live streams, and I started talking about the new zones that I was excited about working on. And once I laid them all out, I decided to ask chat which zone they were most excited for. I gave them the options for Ironwind Pass, a transition zone from the Sleeping Glade to Bone Reach where the wild orcs are beginning to acquire resources for an invasion. Blackrook Vale, a dead, kind of spooky area where the barrier between the spirit world and the living world is thinnest. Delver's Pass, another transition area filled with pine trees, waterfalls, and hot springs that leads players from Windless Woods and Sleeping Glade into the more northern zones of the Mistaken Isles, Iris Lake, and Northest North. Lastly, I introduced a very small zone called the Flood, which is a fungi-filled area in the northwest of Windless Woods, where players will explore an abandoned mage's tower that's been sunk deep into the soft swampland mud. I was personally in favor of Blackrook Vale. The results, however, were heavily in favor of Delver's Pass. I had already started this area a while ago when I needed a break from other tasks, and I think the tranquil scene of the trees and the dark soil was a pretty easy sell. That stream, I dove into level design, working out the key elements of the zone and filling in empty areas from my previous work. I continue with level design the next couple days in between other things like bug fixes, making my channel update video, doing some light marketing for Witch's Eve, and working a bit on a new content creator contact list for 2024. If we want to keep this game going, we need to put a lot more effort into marketing this year than we have in the last couple of years, and that means we need to start getting more content out there about Swords and Magic. If you have any ideas for marketing the game that you think we should try, leave me a comment. We could definitely use some advice here. Anyway, as I blocked out more areas, I planned to have a camp at the top of this hill here, where we would have a tribe of hostile giants, just because I thought that would be cool. But when I sat down to work the next day, I started questioning how I would actually make giant humanoids work in the Swords and Magic art style. With a giant square head, I couldn't figure out a way for an even larger version of the model to match the poly density of the rest of the world, yet still fit in with the character style. So I came up with a new idea. I designed an entirely new race that could fit into the zone instead. I wanted it to stand out and be interesting, and it could have a cool, unique backstory and some lore the player could explore. So here's what I came up with. North of Delver's Pass are the Mistaken Isles. They were discovered hundreds of years ago and mistaken for a bunch of islands in a foggy lake. When explored further, it was discovered they were actually enormous rock spires jutting out of a valley filled with mist. The bottom of this valley was filled with toxic gases that were absolutely deadly to anyone who tried to enter it to explore. But the humans' grit and tenacity led them to trying all sorts of things, including digging a tunnel through Delver's Pass north into the Isles. This obviously failed, but when the tunnel flooded with toxic gas, they were not able to close it back up. Enter the Revori, a nomadic solitary race of very large humanoids who happen to be one of the very few living creatures who could survive in the toxic mists of the Mistaken Isles. When they discovered the caves the humans had dug, they wandered from the only world they'd ever known and discovered a beautiful new land. Over the years, they migrated into Delver's Pass and lived in the mountains, enjoying the clear air after dealing with the toxic gases for so long. I've had a bunch of ideas so far that have gone in many different directions, including one idea in which the Revori are a shamanistic race. They discover tunnels of lava under Delver's Pass after fleeing the mists, and being in awe of the heat and energy of the magma, they begin to worship it. They then discover how to use their shamanistic magic to create golems from the magma to protect their people and their new territories in Delver's Pass. I like the idea that they were the original creators of the golems, which you can now find as far as the farmlands and even up in Snow Peak Village way up north. The problem is that I have no idea how a golem could have ever got all the way up there, so I think maybe the Revori could be creating different sorts of magma creatures to protect them instead. This thought led to a new idea. What if the entirety of Delver's Pass was actually an active volcano, and the valley in the center where a tiny village resides is actually the caldera? I love the idea that whatever the Revori were doing with the magma in the tunnels below was the only thing preventing the volcano from erupting. But of course, ignorant villagers want you to put a stop to all their nefarious activities, leaving you caught between two opposing questlines. This part of game development I love, the blue sky phase, where you're just brainstorming and world building and seeing what fits and what is doable within the mechanics of the game and how zones and people fit together. I hope if I ever get a chance to make a different game someday, hilarious, I know, I can make it very story and lore heavy, and ideally mechanic and development light so it can be a 6-month project instead of 6 years. Anyway, I continued with more level design as I kept contemplating the Revori and how they fit into this new volcanic forest zone. And I thought, what if the Revori were actually afraid of fire? Perhaps they'd never seen it before, or maybe the toxic gases in the Mistaken Isles are highly flammable, so they've had bad experiences with it. With this idea, I could introduce an area of the past that was actually affected by a forest fire. I also like the idea of small enemy fire sprites that were the source of the fires, and have a short questline to put out the fires, defeat the sprites, and find the source of them in a cave somewhere to prevent further fires from spreading. Perhaps this questline could actually be given to you by the neutral Revori. I also considered having someone else who's causing or creating the sprites for some reason, and you could side with them to gain rare weapons or spells or something, putting you at odds with a Revori and turning them into enemies instead. There are so many options. But since I love the forest fire idea, I just decided to go ahead with it, and I'll work the story around it later. Maybe not the best move, but I was eager to create, and I've learned that 6 years into a project that if you're inspired, you better not pass up on that inspiration. Alright, so that's about all I've been working on for the last couple weeks. Let me know your marketing ideas or what you would do with the new Revori race in the comments. Also, please subscribe if you haven't. I'm trying to take YouTube a little more seriously now, and I'm going to keep these videos more consistent. But I lose more subscribers every month than I gain, which I guess is understandable, but if you do like my content and you want me to keep making it, then subscribe and like the video to feed the algorithm. Lastly, if you want access to early builds of Swords of Magic and stuff, like super early single player builds to see where the game started, or early access to updates a week before anyone else, then check out our Patreon and consider supporting the development there. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you next time. Bye.